Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the best place for the best takes. I'm Benjamin Cure. This is the Benjamin Cure Show on a Monday following an excellent weekend of Super Wildcard Weekend action. A really underappreciated storyline this weekend, in my opinion, is probably going to be those revenge games, those comeback games. I thought they were going to make for some excellent matchups. Sure enough, they did. It'll probably be an underappreciated narrative because we have so many other things to talk about today on this Monday. Obviously, there's two games today. One of them will probably already be underway by the time you're listening to this, which is the Buffalo Bills versus the Steelers. Apologies. I think that game is very obvious. I'm going to pick the Buffalo Bills, even though they've been kind of playing the waiting game. It's been a weird situation because of the weather for both of those teams. I assume, though, the defining factor in this game is going to be the absence of TJ Watt, who, since he was drafted to the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Steelers are 1-10 when he misses games due to injury. That, to me, is the reason why the line has continued moving up from 9.5 to 10.5. I assume now it's well above that. I would assume it is. We'll see how that game plays out, though. And then on Monday night, I'll talk about that pick at the end of the game. But we've got Bucks, Philadelphia Eagles. I said it last week. I think it's very obvious who is going to win this game. I am very excited nonetheless. But let's start with the biggest story of the weekend. Wasn't the Sunday Night Football game, but it certainly was the most watched. And it is the one that I'm going to enjoy the most talking about. I'm sure you guys have already seen Stephen A. Smith by the time this airs. I have not seen him yet. I will look forward to watching back that recording and seeing how he reacted. But the Green Bay Packers started off really fast. They dominated the Dallas Cowboys in a 48-32 matchup that was never as close as the box score or as the final score made it out to be. That game was a blowout. I'm sure that in retrospect, Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott and certain guys in that locker room are saying, oh, man, they're going to talk about how we lost. They're not going to talk about how we almost made a comeback. That is probably the mindset to which they have today. Just pathetic performance from them. Green Bay led Dallas, 27-7 at the half. It was an absolute walloping. It was a beatdown. I would say other things, but I would really prefer to keep this clean. They scored 21 points in the second half, thanks largely to Aaron Jones, who had an excellent game. Him and Jordan Love really cooked. They never let their foot off the gas. Aaron Jones proved his value as the Swiss Army knife, as the heart and soul of that Green Bay offense and really their team. He has been so important to their success from really game one this year when he acted as Jordan Love's security blanket, and I talked about it on this show. I thought he was going to be so important. He had some injuries throughout the course of the year, missed some time, but in the end, it is he who is the heart and soul of this team. Credit to Aaron Jones. Credit to Jordan Love, who in his first playoff game looked so much more confident and composed and prepared and ready for the moment than Dak Prescott has in any of his postseason games, any of the games he's played in, not just yesterday, because yesterday was pathetic, but any other game, really. Jordan Love came out swinging. He had all the confidence in the world. He knew his own capabilities, his abilities. He understood that his teammates were going to be there to support him. The body language was just so different between the Dallas Cowboys and the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay looked fresh. They looked ready. They were playing with house money, rightfully so. They're the youngest team in NFL postseason history, and they got it done. The Dallas Cowboys, the healthier team, the more talented team, certainly the most talented team on the field yesterday, they still could not find a way to ever make that game look competitive. I think it was a pathetic showing. I think the body language early on from CeeDee Lamb really set the tone for that game. I thought it was a really weird dynamic between Dak and CeeDee at the beginning of that game that not enough people are going to talk about, but there is something going on there. I don't know if there was an argument midweek, and it's probably wrong of me to speculate, so I should probably say allegedly throughout this, but the body language was just weird. It looked like two friends it looked like two really good friends when you guys get into a blowout argument and you just have to let things cool off. The energy between those two was off. So much so that Mike McCarthy, who never really engages with his players during a game, had to immediately, after the first possession, walk over to the bench to CeeDee Lamb and tell him something. And CeeDee Lamb looked upset, but yeah, I got you. He was trying to they were trying to both be understanding of each other's situation. I don't know what was going on, but it looked weird. In the end, I think the video that I posted on my story on Instagram really encompasses what that game was. Jimmy Johnson at the half was so distraught. At 80 years of age, Jimmy Johnson looked more ready to coach up those men and to coach up those boys and to motivate them for the second half than I can guarantee Mike McCarthy ever will be or than he was in that game. Mike McCarthy looked flat the entire game. It was reflected in the team's performance. They came out flat. They had no energy, no pizzazz, no passion, no confidence in themselves. They looked defeated when they walked into that stadium. And I think Michael Strahan put it best. Those guys feel like they're putting on a performance, like they're not playing football because of the spectacle that is AT&T Stadium and the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones and all those fans. They were so uptight and nervous for that moment that they never got loose. Green Bay came out loose. They came out ready. They were playing with house money. Dallas has a problem. And I think going back to the Jimmy Johnson thing, Jimmy Johnson's speech to rally the men, if he had been in the locker room, was so much better than I can guarantee anything Mike McCarthy said in that moment or anything that he could have come up with. It's just two different coaching styles. And I understand that Jimmy Johnson is an all-time great head coach, but by the same token, Jimmy Johnson is 80 years old. Mike McCarthy is 60 years old. Mike McCarthy is 20 years younger than Jimmy Johnson. And for some reason, he has zero ability, I can guarantee it, to show any sort of passion, to make it known what his intentions are to his team, to come up with a competent game plan. His team didn't come out ready, and they didn't finish ready. That was not a strong finish. I know Cowboys fans are saying, we kind of made a comeback there towards the end. Didn't you see us? We were on their heels. Get out of here. Do me a favor. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. You're going to get blown out at the half. At some point, you're down by 32, and you're going to claim that your salvation and your victory in this entire thing is that you came down to almost being 48, 32, 16 points away from a playoff win at your own home stadium, when you were playing at home, when you were undefeated at home, when you had the healthiest team you had had all year long, when you had the more talented team. That was pathetic. You were going up against the youngest team in NFL postseason history, and they mopped the floor with you. In the end, the narrative that is going around, and the thing that I'm sure everybody wants to talk about on this Monday, which I'm certainly going to get into, which I'm going to take it, I'm not going to take it easy, but I'm certainly going to calm myself down compared to what I would have been like yesterday, because obviously there are a lot of people out there calling for Mike McCarthy's job on this Monday. In the end, it is very obvious. I think you have to get rid of Mike McCarthy. There is no question. He did not have a game plan going into that game. His players looked flat. There was no energy. There was no passion. It is up to the coach to motivate those guys. You saw how energetic Jimmy Johnson was at 80 years of age. Mike McCarthy is an active head coach in the NFL, an active head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, the biggest star in the NFL at this point. He should have been more ready to rally those men and make them feel comfortable and loose at home. He is not a good motivator. He's not a good head coach. He is not a good play caller. None of the things that Mike McCarthy has claimed he is good at, or that his protectors and the people who consistently vouch for him have claimed that he's good at, all of those things were awful yesterday. Dan Quinn, I'm sorry, but there's a lot of coaches out there. There's a lot of players out there too that I don't want to say the media because I feel like I'm part of it, but like the media will constantly say, well, he's a great head coach and he's a great defensive coordinator and he'll be a head coach one day. I never really understood the Dan Quinn hype. I understand that he has good defenses, but they consistently collapse in the postseason. They're great in the regular season. I don't care about the regular season. I need you to perform once playoff time comes. If you claim, or if people are going to claim that you're a great head coach, Dan Quinn, please do me a favor. Scratch his name off any list for a head coaching vacancy as your number 1, 2, or 3 option. The number 1, 2, and 3 options out there should be Mike Vrabel, Jim Harbaugh, and Ben Johnson. In no specific order, obviously. I believe Harbaugh deserves to be above Vrabel on that list, and I think Ben Johnson does as well. But please, if somebody has to consistently tell you that somebody's a great head coach or that somebody is a great player, if they're constantly gnawing your ear off telling you that, chances are they're really not that great. Greatness doesn't have to constantly tell you they're great. Patrick Mahomes is not constantly saying he is great. Andy Reid is never saying I'm great. The great coaches, the great players, they always, most of the time, are going to let their work and their actions speak for them, not their words. And I feel like there's so many people out there saying Mike McCarthy is great and Dak Prescott is great. I said he was playing really good. I don't think I ever said he was great this year, even when he was doing really well in the regular season. And for the people that say Dan Quinn is great, another postseason collapse. I don't know what to tell you. I would not have him, a defensive-minded head coach who just collapsed in the playoffs for the, I don't know how many 10th time in his career. I don't know why you think he's a great head coach, but I don't see it. He's a defensive-minded head coach in an offensive-driven league that collapsed from a defensive point of view immediately going into that game. So Mike McCarthy should be fired. That is my take on that. Should absolutely be fired. The game plan was awful. Didn't have the team ready to go. Those guys did not look motivated. Wrong body language. Just a really odd sight to see, to be honest. And I also saw head coach, or I saw the owner after the game, Mr. Jerry Jones, saying that he was floored by the Dallas Cowboys and what they had put out on the field, that it was the biggest disappointment in his history of being a part of sports. Obviously not the best thing to hear from your owner. And then after the game, you saw Dak Prescott saying things like, I suck. And, if we're going to put Mike McCarthy in the can conversation, like he's out of here and he's getting fired, then put me in that conversation too. It's really sly from Dak Prescott. And I think, I don't know. I don't like the way that Dak Prescott is seemingly trying to come on the offensive here and trying to be slick and trying to be sly and trying to be argumentative. This is another postseason collapse from Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys. And in a league where offense drives everything, where the quarterback is responsible for everything, where all the glory goes to the quarterback, and they do take some, if not all the blame in 2024, Dak Prescott had the wrong attitude during yesterday's game and afterwards in the post-game press conference. I did not like what I saw from him. And then in the end, if Jerry Jones really wants to send the message, because let's acknowledge the reality of the situation here, Jerry Jones is 81 years old. Jerry Jones himself has acknowledged over the past couple of years that he is running out of time. And I don't say that with any sort of disrespect or anything like that. I don't want to be too brash here, but Jerry Jones himself has said over the past couple of years, he feels like he is running out of time. Reporters close to the situation have said the same thing. Close family, close friends, staff in that stadium. They know it. Jerry knows it. He is running out of time to climb the mountaintop as an NFL owner once again before his time is up as an NFL owner and before his time is up on this planet, quite frankly. If Jerry Jones really wants to send a message that nothing less than the best will be tolerated, there are no survivors after this loss. This is the kind of wreckage in which there are no survivors. Forget firing Mike McCarthy. You fire Mike McCarthy. You fire Dan Quinn. You refuse to pay Dak Prescott his third contract, his next major extension, which is supposed to be $60 million per year if he ends up getting it. I'm sorry. Dak Prescott does not deserve a third contract. I find it ridiculous that everybody seemingly feels like Dak Prescott has earned a third contract from the Dallas Cowboys. Let me put up this stat. For those of you who are complaining about Mike McCarthy and defending Dak Prescott has played 8 seasons in the NFL. He has been to 7 playoff. He has made 7 playoff appearances. He has 2 wins out of those 7 appearances. And in that time, he has made $162 million. Let me say that again. Dak Prescott, who has seemingly escaped blame for so many years as the Dallas Cowboys quarterback, their starter, the star of the team, has played in the NFL for 8 years, has made $162 million total cash already, and in that time has 7 playoff appearances and 2 playoff wins. How can we say that Dak Prescott is not part of the problem? And to the people who say wins are not a quarterback stat, because that's the new thing as analysts, that a lot of people out there like to say, especially at ESPN, that, wins are not a quarterback stat. We can't put wins and losses on a quarterback. Well, then tell me why the best quarterbacks always seem to win games. I find it ridiculous. I don't want to target specifically her, but I know that that's one of Mina Kimes' things. I think it's literally her Twitter bio right now. Wins are not a quarterback stat. Then tell me why the best quarterbacks out there seem to always have a great win percentage, why they seem to win games, and why Dak Prescott in the postseason, who is not a great quarterback, who everybody seemingly wants to say, he plays really well. He's a great quarterback. He played great this year. He has 7 playoff appearances over the course of his entire career and has 2 playoff wins with a stacked roster, always supported by decent coaching, always has a healthy roster, has always had an excellent offensive line, has played with weapons like Ezekiel Elliott in his prime, now Tony Pollard, previously Amari Cooper, now CeeDee Lamb, has always had great weapons, has always had an excellent offensive line, top tier, top third of the league, I'd say, top 10 usually, always has an excellent defensive line, a great pass rush, an excellent elite secondary. What more does Dak Prescott need? People used to joke around, how much help does LeBron James need, or how much help does Tom Brady need when he was down in Tampa? How much help does Dak Prescott need after these career numbers of what we're seeing? He has come up short in the biggest moments consistently with the best roster, with the better roster in most situations, with the better coach in most situations. $162 million is what Dak Prescott has made cash that has gone into his direct deposit, into his checking account, whatever that may be. And a lot of people who are young are going to claim, because this is the thing that young people my age like to say, Ben, you're pocket watching. Am I? Sports is the biggest business in the world. All these numbers are public. Everybody knows what everybody's making, including down to Stephen A. Smith, a sports broadcaster. Everybody knows down to the dime what you are making per second, per month, per year, per show, per game. We can criticize athletes for the amount of money they make. It's a lot of money. It can be put under a microscope. When you're in this industry, you pretty much adhere to the fact that your numbers, your salary is going to be put out there. Dak Prescott has made, not the value of his contracts, not any of that. Dak Prescott has received $162 million. He has appeared in 7 playoff games, and he has 2 wins. As a starting quarterback in the NFL, with a stacked roster, with an organization that has done nothing but support him at every turn, as bad as he has been, as many times as he's come up short, Dak Prescott deserved to shoulder some of the blame in this. And that was a pathetic performance from the Dallas Cowboys. I don't want to talk about this anymore. In my opinion, next thing here, last thing to close out on here, a lot of talk that the Cowboys should bring in Bill Belichick to replace Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy should be fired. Bill Belichick should not be his replacement. Bill Belichick has already proven that he's a defensive-minded head coach in a league that is ever more offensively driven, has only succeeded with a superstar quarterback, the greatest quarterback of all time in Tom Brady, one of the best decision makers of all time, has had Mac Jones, has had Cam Newton, has had Bailey Zappi, has tried to draft and sign Tom Brady's replacement because he believed that Tom Brady could no longer play, according to reports that came out last week. Bill Belichick told Robert Kraft, don't worry, Bill Belichick can't play anymore. And he ended up winning a Super Bowl. And apparently, Robert Kraft allegedly, this is a report that came out on ESPN, I think from Wickersham, I think was the last name. I apologize if I'm butchering that. And apparently, Robert Kraft was like, what the hell? He went on and won a Lombardi somewhere else. If you think that Bill Belichick is the key to solving the Dallas Cowboys, he is probably going to have a worse regular season record than Mike McCarthy, because at least Mike McCarthy is an offensive-minded, head coach in the NFL. At least Mike McCarthy understands offense. At least he's an offensive-minded head coach. Bill Belichick has proven that he is a subpar head coach without Tom Brady. He has a record below 500 after Tom Brady left. He has a record below 500 all time without Brady. He was Mr. 9-7 before Tom Brady. I do not think that Bill Belichick is the answer to the Dallas Cowboys' woes. He would have probably had them better prepared for yesterday's playoff game. But beyond that, I really don't know why you think Bill Belichick is the answer. If you really want a total rehaul and you want to burn everything down, I would suggest you only go for the best. You do not settle. You go for either Jim Harbaugh, for Ben Johnson, maybe Mike Vrabel, but mainly the first two, and you say, we are getting rid of Dak Prescott. In my opinion, you need to make it known. If you really want to show that you are not going to tolerate anything less than the best, you do not give Dak Prescott his 3rd contract. You, as Jerry Jones, say, I refuse to give you your 3rd contract, Dak. We have already paid you. You've made a total of $162 million as a Dallas Cowboy. You've been the star of the franchise. You've been supported to the end by me. You have had so much great talent around you on defense, on offense, on the offensive line, on the defensive line. When it comes to weapons, you've had decent coaching. We have switched out coaches when it felt like they were the problem, and we said, it's not you, it's the coach. At what point do we say, no more, Dak? That's it for me. So I apologize if you found that to be a little bit forceful, if you're from the Dallas area, which a lot of you guys are since the beginning, because I've been very critical of the Cowboys, not in a shtick way, but in a very, very fair way. I've been critical to them. A lot of you guys probably watched that and thought it was a little bit too much. I believe that was probably the longest take I've done on a single subject on this show, and it was necessary because I had a lot to say about the situation, and in the end, it is obvious change is necessary in Dallas. So I half apologize, really don't though. Before we get to the excellent Rams-Lions game, because it was excellent and it really did live up to the hype of what we thought that Matthew Stafford to Detroit comeback was going to be, I want to start with the elephant in the Miami room, the Miami Dolphins, Tua, and Mike McDaniel, because, I mean, come on. This one was... Let me start off with a read-through here. The Kansas City Chiefs defeated the Miami Dolphins 26-7 at Arrowhead on Saturday in conditions so cold that Andy Reid, the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, his mustache froze over, and it became one of the most legendary memes of the 2023-2024-ish season. Amid the brutal conditions, the Kansas City offense hit the ground running, marching downfield on the opening drive, and capping it off with an 11-yard touchdown, throw from quarterback Patrick Mahomes to wide receiver Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice had an excellent game, over 100 receiving yards. Yes, 130 receiving yards, 8 receptions. Real star during that game. And Travis Kelce, very hit or miss throughout the course of that game. I will say, let's talk about Travis Kelce really quickly at the start of this. I'm not going to blame it on the Taylor Swift stuff. Obviously, a lot of memes, a lot of out-of-pocket stuff on Twitter on the Travis Kelce situation. I just think genuinely, and I never want to say somebody's time is up, I think regardless of the Taylor Swift situation, Travis Kelce is getting old. Like, he's hitting that cliff that we always talk about with great athletes who are veterans who maybe hang around a little bit too long. And it is a cliff. And it is a decent drop-off in play. It's not like it's slowly going down. He's been very inconsistent this year from the very beginning. I don't think it's a Taylor Swift thing. That is something to look out for. I don't know. I would assume that Travis Kelce is allowed to stay on board at least one more year. But I'm sure there's thoughts at least being had in the Kansas City front office and by their general manager wondering, man, does Travis still have it? Like, he's been very inconsistent this year. And obviously, he's still one of the top 5 tight ends in the league. But by the same token, there's a massive drop-off from Travis Kelce's play and production from last year to this year. There is something going on there, and I don't think it's Taylor Swift related. I think it is age related, and a game that is very unforgiving in a position that can get old very quickly. You're asked to be a hyper-athletic blocker in addition to being a pass catcher and running routes. He is the best. He was previously the best at it. He has yet to prove this year that he is still the best. But this Tua thing, as someone from Miami, I said it all of last week, not only on this show, but on For the Win, which is my duo podcast with Brianna Henschel. Tua, I used to say, was an elite distributor of the football, if nothing else. When people would criticize him, I would always preface it with that. In my opinion, elite distributor of nothing else. Now, Tua has proven time and time again that he cannot necessarily take over a game in the way that a Josh Allen can, or a Patrick Mahomes can, or a CJ Stroud can. He is simply not that kind of player. And after this weekend, I really do dare to say, after a pathetic performance from Tua, just 199 passing yards, an interception early in the game that dug them in a hole, and a late touchdown that was on an explosive play to Tyreek Hill, that was an underthrown ball that Tyreek Hill had to slow down to even catch, where Tyreek Hill was the reason for the touchdown with his explosive playmaking ability after breaking the ankles of the Kansas City secondary. That was all him. That was not a touchdown credited to Tua, even though he gets the credit because he threw him the ball, underthrown, by the way. Beyond that, Tua had a really bad game, a very, very bad showing. And you can't help but maybe acknowledge Tua has always benefited from excellent talent around him, having better talent than the other team does his entire adult life. At Alabama, always had the better head coach, Nick Saban, now Mike McDaniel, has always had guys that have seemingly been there to support him, to make him feel better. And in the end, what is Tua without his excellent weapons who are exponentially better than the guys on the other side of the field? What has he been without Alabama wide receivers at Alabama when the talent was never even, when he always had the better talent, when he always had the better weapons? What is Tua without Tyreek Hill now that he has the better weapon? What is he without Jalen Waddle? What is he without Mike McDaniel and his brilliant offense, which did struggle a little bit? I will say Mike McDaniel, not the best play calling in that game. I think everybody admitted to it and saw it. Even Mike McDaniel's fiercest supporters, including myself, that was not a good game from Mike McDaniel play calling wise. There are some questions to be answered in Miami at Hard Rock Stadium over the course of this week. I don't think he's fired, but I certainly wouldn't rule it out. Even though it's unlikely, I do think there will be conversations had, and he will have to answer to the Miami Dolphins owner for those mistakes and those woes. But in the end, I'm looking at graphics here, and I want to make sure that I'm as fair as possible to Tua, but by the same token, I find it ridiculous that we have to consistently preface everything with Tua is an amazing distributor of the football, and he's just fine, and he deserves our praise, and he deserves the benefit of the doubt. I'm getting some notifications here. I apologize. Let's put up the graphic. Tua's quarterback rating over the past 4 weeks. Tua has played over the past 4 weeks some really good teams and some not ideal conditions. He's faced great coaching, great secondaries, great pass rushes. This is who Tua is. Since everybody wants to argue that stats are the reason that Tua should get paid, and stats are the reason why Tua is a great quarterback, or why he's top 5, or why Miami Dolphins fans can't seem to stop kissing his butt. And I'm sorry that I have to get to that, and I could have been a lot worse. But if everybody wants to argue that stats are the reason why Tua is so great, take a look at these stats. Quarterback rating over the past 4 weeks. These are via teamrankings.com. Tua ranked number 33rd. You want to know who's better than Tua over the past 4 weeks when it comes to quarterback rating, since Miami Dolphins fans and Tua defenders love stats so much? Bryce Young, Nick Mullins, Jake Browning, Jarrett Stidham, Tyrod Taylor, Justin Fields, Aiden O'Connell, Ryan Tannehill, Drew Lock, Desmond Ridder, Russell Wilson, Geno Smith, Mason Rudolph, Derek Carr, and Jordan Love have all been better over the past 4 weeks when it comes to QBR quarterback rating. That's who Tua is. Over the past 4 weeks, when he has faced real teams, good defenses, capable offenses, great pass rushes, great secondaries, elite secondaries, great coaches, great guys who can get after the ball, other offenses who can put points up on the board and are not just reliant on their defense like the New York Jets. That's who Tua is. Over the past 4 weeks, number 33 in terms of ranking of QBR, since Tua defenders love to point out stats. Next thing here, you want to say, oh, Ben, but that's only over the past 4 weeks. Let me show you completion percentage stats over the course of the entire year versus top 10 opposition. Let's see where Tua ranks this entire year, since you think his stats have been so great this year. Tua ranks number 32. You want to know who's better than him versus top 10 opposition this year? Daniel Jones, Justin Fields, Desmond Ridder, Jordan Love, Tommy DeVito, Trevor Lawrence, who has had an awful year, who everybody is questioning right now and thinks, man, maybe this guy doesn't get a second contract. Bailey Zappi, Jimmy Garoppolo, Kenny Pickett, Nick Mullins, Geno Smith, Drew Lock, Tyrod Taylor. I think he appeared twice no, that's not the second time he's appeared on this list. Tyrod Taylor, Joshua Dobbs, Russell Wilson, Mac Jones, Carson Wentz, and Derek Carr. All of those guys over the course of the entire year, a big sample size, a decent and fair sample size over the course of the year versus top 10 opposition, Tua ranks 33rd in completion percentage. All of those guys have been better than him over the course of the year versus top 10 opposition. Tua defenders, you want to shove stats down my throat in my Twitter mentions, in my comments on TikTok, and quite frankly, if you want to go the stats route and you want to ignore what the tape shows you and the fact that he consistently underthrows Tyreek Hill and the fact that he is carried by his system and by his teammates and by his excellent weapons, if you want to claim that stats are the do or die of the Tua argument and whether or not he's elite and whether or not he's top 5, I show you these stats. Completion percentage versus top 10 opposition over the course of the entire year and quarterback rating over the course of the past 4 weeks against decent opposition, and whether that's a little bit uneven, that is not the ideal situation, both at home and on the road against great secondaries, great pass rushes, great teams, great coaching, other capable offenses. This is who Tua is. He's not top 10. He is not in the middle. He is not mediocre. He's not top 16. He is not top 2/3. He is bottom third. As a matter of fact, he is worse in a category in quarterback rating over the last 4 weeks than 32 guys in the league. There are 32 people in the league that have a better quarterback rating than Tua over the past 4 weeks. There are only 32 teams in this league. I don't know what else I need to say. Completion percentage versus top 10 opposition. Tua is number 32. There are 32 teams in the league. But Miami Dolphins fans want to tell me I'm wrong. And they want to tell me that I'm listening to a mainstream narrative and that I am not watching games and that I'm not being supportive of Tua and that I'm not being fair. You want to argue stats? I give you stats. Tua would not get paid a third contract or a second contract. Let me re-say that. Tua would not get paid a second contract if I was the Dolphins GM, if I was the front office, if I was the owner. Tua deserves nothing more than a franchise tag. If Lamar Jackson, who was a reigning MVP, if Lamar Jackson, who had won an MVP already, was questioned by the Baltimore Ravens and there was so much talk about them not wanting to pay him or not being willing to pay him and franchise tagging him, then Tua absolutely deserves the franchise tag this offseason. He does not deserve a long-term contract paying him $50 or $60 million a year. That is ridiculous. That shows that you're delusional. That shows that you don't watch the games. Tua, in my opinion, the most I would be willing to give him is a 2-year bridge quarterback contract extension, the kind of thing that Jordan Love got, obviously more money than that, or a franchise tag. I would franchise tag Tua because these numbers and these stats, since you guys want to go to the stat route, do not support Tua being considered a top 5 quarterback. And after this weekend's game, I'm withdrawing my constant praise of Tua, saying, if nothing else, he's an elite distributor of the football. No, he's not. He is carried by his system. He is carried by his talent. He is not a good decision maker, and he is not good under pressure, and he's not an elite distributor of the football. I take that back after this weekend's games 10 times out of 10. So now that we are done with the very highly contentious subjects, and I can calm down a little bit here because I need to. That's probably the angriest I've ever gotten on this show, to be honest. I've got a lot of people. I'm from Miami. I've got a lot of classmates, a lot of friends, a lot of teachers who, want to shove down my throat that Tua is the next coming of Dan Marino. And I don't see it. I never did. I don't currently. I don't think I ever will. I don't care if Tua next year starts off 8 straight weeks with 350 passing yards per game and 3 touchdowns and just 1 interception per game, more or less. I don't care. He has shown you who he is. And I'm tired of saying these guys deserve a chance to get better and we got to give him time. CJ Stroud was great from day one. Justin Herbert broke the rookie completion stat and the rookie passing yard record with the worst offensive line in the league his rookie year. There are some guys in this league that are just overcomers. This is not amateur league. This is not, no offense, the USFL or the XFL or the new one, the UFL. This is not that. This is not college football. This is not D2 or D3 college football. This ain't JUCO. This is the NFL. People are getting paid generational wealth to play a child's game. If you need time, I don't know if I can put my arms around you. Justin Herbert, day 1 was great. Patrick Mahomes, day 1 was great. CJ Stroud, day 1 was great. I don't know how many more times I have to say, well, we got to give him time. Joe Burrow with injury concerns was great immediately. Come on, guys. Come on. With that being said, I said I wasn't going to get heated again, but I already did. Let's talk about the Rams-Lions game because in the end, and I tried to tell myself this at the end of that game because they did deserve the benefit of the doubt. They did. Sean McVay and the Rams were not supposed to be in this position this year. I thought they would be one of the worst teams in the league. I was admittedly wrong about that. I said that very early on in the year. This team had more fight, more talent, and was more capable than we gave them credit for in the offseason. And in the end, they finished 10-7, good enough to finish second in the NFC West. Man, they kind of do deserve our props. That is a team who should not have been in this position, who we did not see being in this position before the season started, who was not overhyped in any way, who made it not to the big game, but to a bigger game, and they deserve our credit. Now, I will say, Sean McVay, I really like the fact that he took the points. In a league that is so analytics-based and go for it and go for it and go for it, he knew that he was inching towards being able to get in a winnable margin of the Lions, consistently kicking those field goals. I did not mind that. I thought that was very smart on his part, and they were at one point just a point away from winning that game or taking the lead in that game or tying the game. They were 1 point away. It was 24-23. I do not mind Sean McVay's decision to consistently kick the ball. I don't mind that at all. With that being said, the problem that I do have with Sean McVay at the end of that game comes when you have 1 timeout left, there's about 4 minutes left, and you decide to punt the ball away. You know that your defense is not going to be able to hold back Ben Johnson, who was excellent in yesterday's game, who deserves a lot of credit, who schemed up one of the best opening drives and best closing drives I have ever seen in my entire football life. You know you weren't going to be able to stop that Detroit Lions offense. You only had 1 timeout left. I don't know what that decision came down to. I don't know what he was thinking. I think he himself in the post-game press conference admitted that wasn't a great decision. Obviously, if I could go back, I would take that shit back. I think he said an expletive. I think that's exactly what he said. I heard it on Scott Van Pelt on ESPN after the fact. But yeah, obviously an interesting situation. I don't love what happened there. I think they could have found themselves in a position where they could win. But at the end of the day, very happy for the Detroit Lions. I picked the Rams in that game. If you watched my For the Win podcast episode with Breonna Henschel, which I shouldn't have done. I have a bad habit of straying away from my preseason picks once they pan out, which I know makes no sense. I said the Lions were going to be a top 5 team in the NFL, period. Not in the NFC, in the NFL, period, before the season started. They have turned out to be exactly that. Excuse me. Yeah, so I'm not sure why I strayed away from that. I think I got too caught up in the hype of Matthew Stafford going back and the revenge game, and in the end, it just wasn't enough, and it shouldn't have been considered to be enough. Detroit is an excellent team, excellent offensive line. Excuse me. Had breakfast right before I did this, and obviously with all the screaming, that stuff's coming back out. But great game from the Detroit Lions. I think they're one of the better teams in the league. They will go on to face either the Philadelphia Eagles or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers next week. I assume it will be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I will talk about that later in the show. And I assume that they will beat them comfortably. Can't wait to see that. Let's move on to our last story, though, here. And I'm not going to even put a transition on it because let's just go off the dome here. Bronny James, LeBron James Jr.'s son, made his first start for the USC Trojans basketball team over the weekend. He started 25 minutes in that first game, and he scored 0 points. And the internet is ready to pounce on the kid. And I do genuinely feel bad because it was not his best output. The shooters for USC as a whole, they got themselves down in a hole. They were down. They never really got hot. You're going to have those nights at any level of basketball. High school, college, pros. You have nights where your shooters as a whole are off. USC was off in that opening game. But people attacking Bronny James, I think I stand somewhere in the middle of this thing. There are people who are so ready to say, Bronny James sucks. He's the worst. He's a product of his father's, and that's about it. And he's a product of his dad's hype. And then there are people who are willing to say, he's the next coming of LeBron James. He's going to be just as good, if not better, than his father. And I stand somewhere in the middle of that. And I think that's perfectly fair and honest and fair. I think that it is very fair. Bronny James, 25 minutes, starting in his first game, 0 points. We have known for some time now, unless you're in denial, if you're looking objectively, and I don't mean this in necessarily a bad way to Bronny James, but we have seen this now. Bronny was a really good distributor in high school. That's what he showed us at Sierra Canyon and his AAU leagues on the travel teams in middle school. He plays a different style of basketball from his father. He likes to be the distributor, the guard, the point guard, more so than the guy like his dad, LeBron, who early on, even in high school, was a get-a-bucket guy, could drive to the rim, could bully you with his weight, could just impose his will on you and get to the rim and score. That's not who I think Bronny James is. Bronny James likes to shoot from beyond the arc, likes to take jump shots from far out, likes to take those three-point shots, and the way that the game has evolved over the past couple of years, not only in the NBA, but in AAU and in high school and in college basketball as well. Bronny James has never played his dad's style of basketball. So to the people who are saying now all of a sudden, well, Bronny James looks nothing like his dad, he never really did, to be honest. Beyond the physical appearance, Bronny James never quite looked from a playing style like his dad does. His dad has always been a get-a-bucket guy, an undeniable jump shot, is going to get to the rim. Bronny James likes to play from beyond the arc, does not necessarily love contact, isn't the kind of guy that's going to is not necessarily the kind of guy that's going to drive into the paint and create contact and get to the foul line. He is a guard who likes to distribute the ball, who is good from beyond the arc, but he's never been this guy who I thought was going to be an immediate first-round pick. The only reason I ever thought, truthfully, that Bronny James might be a first-round pick at the end of this year was the fact that LeBron had made it abundantly clear over the past couple of years that he would be going to wherever his son got drafted to. So because of that, teams would say, I'm not only getting Bronny James, who might be good, might be not, might be bad. I mean, they don't know. But we might also get LeBron James. That was the incentive, and that's why maybe Bronny James would have had a higher draft ceiling in terms of where he would get drafted. But Bronny has never been his dad. With that being said, I don't think it's fair to criticize Bronny James after just one game. It's just one game. How are you going to write Bronny off after just one game? He's coming back from a devastating injury, a heart condition or a heart situation before the season started. He needs time to get back in there. It's one game. It's his first game starting. Obviously, 25 minutes on the box score with 0 points is not a good look. But at the end of the day, Bronny has never looked like Steph Curry, to be honest, in terms of beyond the arc shooting capabilities. And he's never looked like his dad. He has never had that LeBron James playing style. Can he get better? Absolutely. But he needs more time. And then to the people who overhype him, I would say temper your expectations. You are just throwing this kid to the wolves. Victor Wembanyama in his first NBA Summer League game did not play well. The pressure can get to you. Bronny is obviously a big-time star, will always be. Whether it's deserved or not remains to be seen. But yeah, I think take it easy on Bronny. Take it easy on that whole situation. Tonight, Philadelphia Eagles versus the Buccaneers. Let's just get into that and let's wrap up. I am taking the Buccaneers. The Philadelphia Eagles have been going like this. Going like this. Obviously, for me, it would be, if we were looking at stocks, it would be going in the other direction. But yeah, for you guys, I think it's going this way. He has not been playing well at all, or it would be going this direction. I apologize. But he has not played well at all. Jalen Hurts has struggled. Apparently, there are reports that his arm is, he's not using it right now. There's a lot of drama surrounding A.J. Brown. That is a situation to keep an eye out on. He was present at a boxing match over the weekend. Very weird stuff going on. I know he archived all of his Eagles pictures on IG. That does mean something in 2024, even if we've got a decent older audience here who is 34 and up, who is 40 and up, who I'm sure you guys use Instagram, but many of you may not. Some of you are like dads of friends and whatnot, and I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and like people from my church and whatnot. But yeah, it means something in 2024 if an athlete archives or deletes all of their pictures that are team-centric, all of his Eagles-oriented pictures from his Instagram. It means that he wants out, more than likely. Stephon Diggs has done the same in the past. Quarterbacks like Kyler Murray have done the same when they don't get paid. That is a situation to monitor. With that being said, I have no voice, to be honest. I am running out of things to... I'm not running out of things to say. I'm running out of breath. So with that being said, that is the end of the show. We have got an excellent weekend and week of football coming up. Some great basketball. We are in basketball season. We're going to start talking about that a lot more. Bucks look really good right now. Got to say, they absolutely torched the Celtics. I watched that game in the first half. So much so they had to sit the starters at the half. Now they had a really good game yesterday. Like what I'm seeing from the Bucks. Really do. Feels like they might be the... I'm getting my sports confused. Feels like they might be NBA champions at the end of this year. We'll see how that goes, though. With that being said, I am Benjamin Cure. This is the Benjamin Cure Show. Thank you so much for tuning in on video, our YouTube audience, on radio, on that app that I forget the name of, our podcast and audio audience on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. That is all for this week. I will see you next week.